Your grittiest, toughest, most honoriest character in your story walks into the salty spittoon, well prepared for the customary question at the point of entry. But the question has changed. It is now, why tough are you? Attack on table.
Attack on table!
Welcome to Attack on Table, everybody. We are Sean and Ryan, or RM Johnson for short, doing another episode of Attack on Table. But we are exploding onto the scene this time with a new, call it an experiment. We have brought on our old friend Eric Staggs from season 1. He is going to be addressing the issue of gritty characters and how to write them. I took it away from you, Ryan. I'm not sorry. But go ahead and tell everybody what you think.
So since I can't use the B word that we want to use, it's even probably in the thumbnail. Who cares? We're talking about rough and tumble characters, the characters we like to love and often are hated by most. I don't know how else to describe them. We're talking about badass characters. I can't say it without using the word. You're crippling me, and so that's kind of a hard thing to like pack into a nutshell with a definition. But I think we're just gonna kind of dig into what we hate about a lot of like the way people write badass characters. Right? That's the plan.
Yeah, I think where the issues come from with gritty characters, just to help myself with the editing process, is when they're done wrong by somebody who doesn't know a badass to base it off of, or somebody who just doesn't understand what it is to be tough in the sense of writing. Is there anything that you think outside of that bothers you, Eric?
No. Let's see. When we're creating these characters, like you said, people who don't have the experience, well, I can save everybody 5 minutes. You can't write if you can't relate.
Couldn't have said it better. Ryan, learn a thing or two from Eric.
Oh, you son. All right. Well, I will say it just kind of get us in the waters a little bit. I think the thing I hate the most about writing these characters and where a lot of things go wrong is like we kind of look into common advice and how to do that. And I find that in some cases it's one dimensional, in others it can be almost bordering on reductive, because you start boiling people down into single element things, and it your character starts to lose something in that, and then it starts to become like I forget what the term is, but it's just like a facade of a thing, and so like that kind of ruins it for me. I also think we run into the trouble of creating Mary Sue's, especially with like Sean and I have discussed this multiple times, Eric, where it's like an unearned competency, where it's just like the person comes onto the stage and they just know everything and have all the answers. Yeah. Is there anything like you kind of, when you're encountering people that are like, oh, this character's, a bad man pajama, if we're going to find different words to fill the word that we want to use.
I really do appreciate it.
If you're encountering those characters, like not necessarily in your own stories, but like when you're enjoying a story and someone's like, oh, this character's this, and you're just like, yeah, I guess, but is it what about that kind of turns you off?
Jeez. Well, like you said, the unearned competency, it bothers me a lot, right? Anytime a character can step onto the scene and know exactly what's going on, I just don't get it. I just don't feel it. We see that in a lot of science fiction. For
Mhm.
example, well, Star Wars, everybody can jump in a ship and fly it.
That's a fair point.
However, in that setting too, ships are like cars. I could get into a Datsun and probably drive it, right? So I guess it kind of works out for them, but I still think that's a pretty strong example of unearned competency, you know? I am curious though, when you guys are talking about these gritty, powerful characters, do you have examples? Because the first thing that comes to mind for me is Indiana Jones.
Yeah, that's I would say a good comparison for me on my end would be like Conan.
Okay, yeah, Conan. Oh, Conan. Yeah. Okay.
And not just the Arnold Schwarzenegger Conan, like the proper Conan
Yep.
from the stories Conan.
Robert Howard. Yeah.
The Jason Momoa.
I can't even.
You know what? I took it. I loved the movie because I was so desperate for new Conan content. I was like, fine, give me.
Wow.
Yeah, true.
I've always been a much bigger fan of like the more quiet ones that didn't need the world to see how tough they were, and probably would have rather preferred that they didn't. Indiana Jones is an awesome example of somebody who is, I don't want to say loud about like what he does or anything, but he's okay if people find out. That's not always been my cup of tea. I would have said something like Aragorn, or gosh, you go into video games, Solid Snake.
Deep cut. Yeah, totally.
That would be my thing. And I think what always rubs me wrong, and it should rub everybody wrong, is the person who is written to, that needs everybody to know how badass they are, or they go into cliche with the levels of like, I only ever talk like this. Looking at you, Steven Seagal.
I was about to say it. I was about to say it.
So one thing that just occurred to me is the commonality between the three characters we named: Indiana Jones, Conan. Oh, we didn't name the third one, but I did in my head, John Wick.
Oh yeah.
The commonality between those three characters is suffering. Right? Indiana Jones gets the stuff beat out of him all the time, and he just keeps coming back for more. He's like Captain America. I could do this all day. John Wick, that's suffering, man. And I don't even want to talk about what happened to that poor guy. And then Conan, of course, his entire village was wiped out, and he was a gladiator slave for years and years and years. So that I don't want to say a sad background, but that previous suffering adds a lot to the character motivation and their level of badassery.
Well, I think the thing that we latch onto, I mean, this is kind of something that we were going to get into when discussing things deeper, but like what you're talking about to me is keen into like why people attach themselves to these characters. It's not just like, oh, they've suffered and then we sympathize, because we don't sympathize with anything that they're dealing with. What we do is we admire their perseverance.
Yes.
Their ability to take in great suffering and then continue to move forward and not let it like bring them down, or if it changes them, it's not something they reflect on. They don't reflect on the change. They just change and move on. And I think that's something that we as humans all wish we could do, like, that. And so it's something we admire, and then we kind of like, I can get excited about those characters.
Yeah. Beyond admiration, I would say inspiration. It's inspiring to watch a story like that unfold and know that somebody was, had their back against the wall and then decided that they weren't going to let them ruin them. They weren't going to let it ruin them. And I think that that's the reason why people latch on to, characters like that the most. But I guess the real question is if you're a new writer and you want to have a good, solid character that's coming into your story, be it on screen, on page, any sort of medium, if you're a game designer in your video game, how do you write that? How do you bring the reader to respect your character? And the great jump-off point that Eric listed was the commonality of suffering. They have to have been through something. Nobody's tough for no reason. Probably a good time for us to just dive right into all of like that surface level advice that bothers us so much and dig a little deeper. What's the first one, Ryan?
Oh, you know what it is, Sean.
It's
We all know what it is.
everything. Show,
It's
don't
show,
tell.
don't tell.
Sure, don't tell.
Shrimdenter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I would love someone to explain what that means. Like,
well, especially when you're creating a something in words, right? Like, I have to tell.
well,
I have to tell
so
them.
I kind of get what they're saying is like show your character being I'm running out of steam here with words,
Gritty.
I'm running out of words. You should have printed off a list of acceptable terms for me. Yeah, when it's better to show your character doing gritty things
Actions and
instead of
events.
especially instead of them reminding everybody of just how, because that's what we call, that's not a tough guy, that's a tough guy.
That's a edgelord.
Yeah.
Nice. I
I
like
think
that.
it
Yeah.
was Roanoke Gaming had a line when I was watching one of his videos that I just loved. It was this guy's a pizza cutter, all edge, no point. I loved it.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah, I think a thing to remember when you're trying to create a character, I feel like there is always, whether it's a man or a woman, there's like a degree of stoicism you should kind of impart into that. You know, it's the mentality of like when you're a tough individual, we're just going to keep using that word. When you're a tough individual, when you're gritty, you don't tell people, you don't have to tell people that. People say that about you.
Yes.
You know, and
Yeah.
so like as a writer, if you're constantly just informing the audience of how, you know, tough and gritty and cool your character is, they're gonna feel very lame very fast, and it's gonna give you the ick. Yeah, it's gonna give you the ick, ladies.
Have you guys ever seen The Expanse or read the books?
I have, yeah.
So there's some difference between this character that I'm going to talk about in the TV show and the books, but in the television show, they call him the Ghost Knife. Now I'm blanking on his name, but anyway, he was a pirate, and he's kind of been a jerk through the like 4 seasons. Came in late second season, something like that, and he's got this reputation, right? He's got burn scars on his face, and he's got a reputation, and he does shitty things to people, but he has good reasons, right? Like, yeah, I'm gonna take over command of this ship, but that's because I need to save 50 people's lives that he believes, right? The other guy believes he's going to try to save him too. Anyway, the Ghost Knife at the very end, he's got to board a ship, and he blasts weightless through 2 airlocks and does this pirouette thing, and he's got his guns out and flying backwards. He moves past the guards and gets them both, lands in front of the control station, and is like, where's the pizza? Right? Nobody's with him. Nobody sees it. No comments, right? But it happened. That guy, that revealing, that was show don't tell, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's another character that I think is one that should be examined too. And then later it got into his suffering, which was the loss of his daughter in the fire and so on and so forth. But
yeah, I think we can all agree that watching Aragorn, you know, take out a few of the wraiths, the Nazgul, firsthand, instead of just like having him sit over a fire and be like, let me tell you this story about how I fought off the Nazgul, you know. It was better to be there to watch it happen.
And I think that's where the show don't tell aspect of the advice is really coming from. Even going back to what you were saying about having other people realize that they're tough, that is basically showing, because it's other characters realizing like who they're in the presence of, rather than describing the character. Be like, Bill was tougher than a steak that had been baked for 4 days straight.
Yeah,
like nobody likes that.
It's how the world interacts with that person.
Yeah.
So that is sure.
And all the other characters, as you're writing them, are going to modify and change their trajectories and needs and wants based on this new presence, this fear presence, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, that character is like a big planet with a lot of gravity, you know, affects everything.
So the next piece of advice we have is create real stakes and challenges. Sean made a note here, because you can't be tough without stakes.
It's true. There's a lot of protein.
Do you agree with that, Eric? You agree with that in order for you to create a BA character, you need real stakes and challenges for them to overcome?
I mean, I think that's kind of a trick term, real stakes. I'm a big sci-fi guy, so if I go back into sci-fi for a minute, is my warp core blowing up a real stake? It is certainly for the characters, right? But can the audience relate to it? Is that what they mean by real stakes? Or do we go back to, I'm looking for my sister? That's something people can like really relate to. That's a real stake. That's something everybody could potentially imagine, you know, if they have a sister. So I'm not really sure how I feel about that one because it feels situational.
What about you, Sean?
I align with Eric in the sense of like the ability to relate to what's going on. Real to the character, great, but probably not something that anybody could relate with. I'd probably be easy to imagine something like that in more of a visual medium. You're experiencing it with more than one sense, so you can grind yourself. Because that makes me think of like with the core of the world stops spinning. The movie, The Core. You know, I went with Aaron Eckhart to the middle of the planet, and I forget who they lost, but there was a few of them. They didn't all make it back.
Fishburne.
It's a dangerous mission.
Yeah,
I think they lost Fishburne. Yeah, I do not agree with this. I'm not again. I get what they're trying to say. I like what I think they're trying to emulate is what I call pseudo stakes, which are things that feel difficult to everyone else, but they're easy tasks for, you know, the badass.
BA. Yeah.
You know, and that's what kind of sets him apart is like, I've thought of everything I could do to stop this force of zombies coming at me. Little did I think that walking through them and just being the most badass person in the world was the answer to that quandary. You know, so you know, and so it's like that's what sets legends up. It's like I thought this thing was impossible, and here comes this person and just you know walks through it like, you know, a field of daisies. And that's not necessarily speaking of like instant I just lost the word in my head. We said it earlier. Competence. Yeah. It's not the same as being unearned. It's like you could have all these explanations, you know, his history, his training, whatever, his ability to think outside the box, whatever it is. Everyone else around them has created a scenario where they feel like it's impossible, but it's just from a lack of them not thinking about this one thing or not having the skill set or just not being unafraid enough to try something, you know, being locked in their own fear. And that's what creates legends. And I think because to me, a real stake is the story itself. And you can't have a badass walk through the story and then become a badass. But you're calling him a badass throughout the entire thing. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Right. Well, and nobody starts out that way, right? Depending on where you begin your story, nobody starts out that way. So speaking of Mamma Jammas, that made me think of Ripley in Alien.
Yeah, okay. Sean liked Ripley as a good key figure as well.
Torn that movie apart. I even have a book called Alien and Philosophy, and I tore that apart and I read it and really dug in, and it was great. But Ripley, she's a comms officer, right?
Mm-hmm.
She works the radio, and all this crap falls apart around her, and she's terrified. She's still a badass because she doesn't let that fear stop her.
Yeah.
Near the end of the movie, Lambert lets the fear get her killed, right? Lambert's not a badass. Ripley is a badass. And then by the time we get into the second movie, she's like, shit, I've seen these things before. And now I know what to do, you know? So then she's got her earned badass toughness and competency, right? No, I think she's a fantastic example of a plain character fulfilling their arc and becoming something better, truly.
And they take so much of their time with it throughout those movies. By the end of the third movie, or I should say maybe the middle of the third movie, even I know that one's not like widely regarded or anything, but she is basically the last word in the Xenomorphs at that point. By the end of the second movie is really how long it takes for her to finally get to the point where she is willing to take on the Queen one-on-one with her big robo forklift. And it takes her that long to basically overcome her fear, get resourceful and everything, and basically like get to the point where she can actually be confrontational. But in the entire first one, she's running. She survives by hiding and running away. So I think that she's an excellent example of earned competency in storytelling, and getting a character from, you know, the place of comms officer to being like, if we're going to be up against these things, that is the one human I want to be on my team, because she knows the threat very, very well. And this would be a good time to probably bring up the other side of that coin that we've been discussing. Captain Marvel. Not earned competency.
Are you a fan? Are you a fan, Eric?
I'm drawing a blank. Brie, the
Brie
actor?
Larson, yeah.
Brie Larson. Yeah. I like her. I think she does all right for Captain Marvel. I've heard she's a little hard to work with. I don't know. I don't work with her, and I'm not worried about that. her whole deal is she's Captain Marvel. She was on an alien planet training to be space cop, so she's got some competency, right? Then she's got the power, and she's learning how to use the power. Not always working the way she needs it to, but eventually she can do a laser blast and fly and do what needs to be done. I think that the writers shortchanged Captain Marvel because that's an epic character, kind of like Green Lantern, space cop over the galaxy. Interesting, lot of stuff to worry about. So she got shortchanged.
I do agree with you on that point, but she got all of her abilities from a magic box that she ran into after a plane crash, if I understand correctly.
Totally true.
That's a retcon. Yeah.
I know that that's not how it went in the comics, and I'm not attacking the comics. What we were really kind of discussing was like that scene where a dude cat called her and she just put him in the hospital.
Yeah. I think the big thing that we kind of led in with like her being whether or not that's earned competence. I don't know if we can discuss whether it's earned. My problem with it is it feels like it's conflating arrogance for confidence, and I think the character. I can't say whether or not the actress, made these choices. I'm pretty sure it had a lot to do with the writing. But I feel like the writing made Captain Marvel extraordinarily arrogant. And I don't think arrogance is, especially when you're doing a hero archetype character, right. Arrogance is rarely digestible unless it's funny. Yeah. Often like it's self-defacing, like Deadpool. Deadpool is arrogant, but he's also self-defacing. He's,
constantly,
all these things, like his arrogance is almost like a level of acceptance because he's burnt to a crisp and he looks like garbage. he knows what he is. Yeah, he knows exactly what he is, and so like he's just letting it loose, and who knows how strong his like level of arrogance actually is. It could just be getting a laugh most of the time. But with the Captain Marvel character, especially when you compare it to another paragon on that same stage, would be like Superman. Just the way they handle things. Sean and I had a bit of a beef with each other when we were talking about it before. I don't want to say beef, not like we were fighting each other, but like
beef every day.
Yeah. So like the instance with her like beating up a biker because she got catcalled, and I compared that to something similar that Superman did in one of the movies there, where he got like humiliated in front of a bar, and like being bullied, and he didn't punch the guy, he didn't knock him out, he didn't do nothing, he just walked outside very quietly and then destroyed the dude's truck.
Yep. Oh, that was the newer one. That was in one of the newer Supermans. Yeah.
Man of Steel.
And
around the pole. Yeah.
And Sean and I were debating the logistics of whether or not like which one's worse, getting punched in the face and almost killed by a superhuman, or having your lifeblood, throttled onto a pole and destroyed. But I think ultimately what we concluded was like that's probably something what that Superman did there is probably not something he's going to brag about. He probably would look back at that as like a moment of weakness, and he's like, I let him get to me. Whereas Captain Marvel would not see that. She's like, I fucking taught that dude a lesson.
Right. I'll do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
We're
that-
way past sorry, Ryan.
And to me, that's just like that's a fundamental flaw in your character design when you're making particularly a hero. Like if you're trying to make a classic hero and you can't really dip your toe in the anti-hero. You're either doing an anti-hero or you're not.
It's true. The Malazan books, have you guys read those?
Oh, I started one. It was hard.
I've tried.
Steven Erickson. I actually took me 2 tries, but I really liked him and I read all of them.
I'm trying
Yeah,
to
he's
think
not a
of
bad
sorry.
writer. It's just like
Yeah.
it's a steep curve.
There's a lot. Yeah.
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 But I don't remember any of the characters at all, except for the one who refers to himself in the third person. And I found him so irritating I had to skip the chapter.
Ooh, yeah.
And isn't that weird? Because like I was into those books, right? And I tend to remember stuff. I don't remember any of their names. I don't remember anything. In fact, I don't even know what happened. There was so much going on, right?
They were
I mean,
very
then-
busy. What I got into. Most of the time when you see somebody using themselves in the third person to refer to themselves, it's the writer's way of making fun of it. Like, just a quick sidestep back into film by South Park. James Cameron. James Cameron doesn't do what James Cameron does for James Cameron.
That's awesome.
But
Well,
that,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think that it's obviously a parody. They're making fun of him and everything for laughs, but that I can't see you writing a character that way for any kind of story and expecting that person to be taken seriously. Is that what happened in the book?
No, well, I didn't take the character seriously. I actually thought he might have been hit in the head or had some kind of a curse on him or something that made him do that. And after a while, I accepted it. I was okay with it, but I still skipped the chapter.
I
Yeah.
wonder if the author, I'd have to get to that myself. I wonder if the author was doing that on purpose, because that is a thing that we would do. Like that's a behavior that we all kind of like cringe at in real life. And so that's kind of like in wrestling, we call it cheap heat. It's a cheap way to get that reaction from the audience you want, which is like, yeah, I don't want people to like this guy. I want them to be like, ugh.
And that was the sense I guess I got. Now that I'm thinking about it, things are coming back. I think that was the sense I got from the characters around him. They were just like, okay, we'll see you later.
So let me steer us back into our common advice we've encountered. The next one is you need to give your bad mamma jamma a why. Sean and I got in a debate about this. He thinks I'm wrong. I read the thing, so I know I'm right. The why that they're prescribing is to essentially give them some motivation for what they're doing. And I disagree with this behavior as far as like creating a bad mamma jamma, because the why should be instilled in like the story as like, well, why are they doing anything? That's not what makes them BA. Right? That's just the story unfolding. To me, like the why they are what they are isn't as important as to how they got there and what steps and I would say why they continue to do something would probably be important, but not necessarily for the story.
I really don't think that a character should walk onto the stage, for lack of a better term, as a BA. Because I just don't. I don't know.
Well, I'm going to hold on to this for a second, but I will just say I do have one character that I will allow that for.
Okay.
And I know
I want to hear.
I feel like Eric's going to agree with me. I don't know if Sean even knows who this person is. He might, because he mentioned someone else, but I'm going to hold on to it until we get into our personal stuff. Is there anything you guys have to say about like the whys, whether or not it's motivation or some window in there that
motivation has to be tied to, it's situational. The character's motivation has to be tied to the plot, right? It has to weave in, be interwoven and work together. If there's a lot of shoehorning, go back and edit, go back and fix that, right? The why is intrinsically part of your plot for all characters, in my opinion.
See, I'm with Eric on that one, and I love how he can say things in under a calendar year. The way when I read the why that I read in that advice is the why are they tough? Like, what is the reason that they're tough? And we got into a big argument about the who, the what, the when, the why, and the how, and everything like that. But to me, it was just what is it that made them tough? And that was, I think that's why we argued over that so much, because we were both trying to make different points on different subjects. Because I'm standing here with my feet planted firmly, and you can't make steel without fire.
Right.
The next piece of common advice. Sean wrote a bunch of stuff here. It's a smorgasbord of stuff, but really what it is it's about showing their vulnerability. Sean wrote, he might kill a boogle of orcs, but he loves the smell of daffodils and isn't afraid to cry.
So gritty.
I actually wrote down emotions for why.
For why?
For the whys, yeah, for sure. You're gonna have this unknown impulse, this need, an emotional need, an illogical need to accomplish a goal, avenge your dog, or whatever.
Sure.
So I think emotions are a big part of it too. You know, I'm on a quest to not do anymore, or whatever. You know.
I think that people who are writing a story should be careful about conflating emotions with vulnerability. Everybody has emotions. I don't care how tough you are. If you didn't get hit in the frontal cortex of your brain and just have it absolutely liquefied, you have emotions. Nobody's too tough to not have them. But losing control of them is not tough. I think anybody would be able to, get on board with that, and without some really serious stuff happening. And that should be saved for a powerful moment in your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I wish I was more contrary to you guys. We're all kind of fitting in the path here.
It's all right.
I'll just play devil's advocate maybe next time.
I like a character who can throw a fit.
Yeah.
Over the minorest inconvenience.
I like my bad mamma jammas to be like soft paper.
Right. Just a wet paper tiger.
Yeah. So let's kind of move into our personal things. We've got to essentially the who, what, why, where, and what makes them gritty.
Well, yeah.
I'll use this moment to kind of insert the thing I was talking about earlier. I have one character that can come onto the stage, super competent. I love them. Have you guys ever heard of Snake Plissken?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's my one guy. And the way they do that is it's not Snake. Snake doesn't blow himself up. He's not, I'm this, I'm that. He's not doing that at all. In fact, he has very little, he doesn't want to do what you want him to do. He wants to go do his own thing.
Yeah.
But like the whole time, like he's being introduced, it's just everyone talking about him being what he is, and like the trouble he causes and all this stuff. And then he comes onto the stage and he's exactly what everybody said, maybe even more so. And he just kind of like leans into it, and that's kind of the one guy I'll like allow to just walk onto the stage and be, absolutely perfect at what he's trying to do. Especially for Kurt Russell's interpretation of it, shooting all those baskets in real life.
Eric, what if you're going to write a character who's just a hard apple? What kind of techniques do you like to use that really convey that?
Okay, so I'm going to draw from a character I'm working on now. Her name is Janet Hilden. That's not her real name. So we pick up when she's just committed a murder, and she's got it's sci-fi. She's got a computer. She's talking to the computer, and she's saying, she's moderately successful. So she's saying, I need you to dump all the stocks, convert everything to liquid. I'm going to need a new ID, and I'm getting on an aircraft very soon. So her bad BA-ness comes from, she's got a pretty powerful intellect. She was a scientist ahead of time, right? And then when she realized that she'd committed this crime, she's just like, okay, time to use that big brain for other things. She goes on to so I brought her in, very meek, very quiet, demure, and then as she's interacting with the world around her, I slowly explain, yeah, she knows how to do that because she's, got a PhD in genetics or whatever, right? And I try to go back before they get on the page. I start with a seed, literally, or an egg, and okay, where did they grow up? Where did they go to school? One of the things I was taught in college is if you're stuck with a character, write about their bedroom, write everything you would see in their bedroom without the character in it. And that's pretty much going to tell you everything you need to know. If they have a book by the bedside, what book is that? That matters, right? If they have trophies on the wall, okay, they're athletic. That matters. So I do little exercises like that to help kind of help define them. And then I try to bleed out information. Right? Yeah.
I like that.
I was just gonna say, when we were talking earlier about demonstrating vulnerability and stuff like that, I think it's key to not necessarily fixate on the person's vulnerableness, but how they handle being vulnerable or the things that they are dealing with. And I think a great aspect of that is just to maybe mention how, like, have the character mention it once and like maybe draw some kind of conclusion or reflection on it and then move on. But like constantly, especially as the narrator, reinforcing their like sadness or the strife they're dealing with, like that just brings it brings the mood down, and no one wants to feel super, no one really is inspired by someone that they feel super sad for.
That's true.
And
Yeah,
part
for
of
sure.
being a pair of pajamas or whatever we're calling them is that you're an inspiring figure. You inspire and people admire.
There's a leadership
do that.
aspect. There's a leadership
Yeah.
aspect, right?
Even if you're not trying to be a leader,
Yep.
you just have that, you want to follow them. That's the real intent. That's all I wanted to say is in regards to that.
Well, I'll jump in with you there about that competency and the confidence without the arrogance. There's a job to do. I know how to do it, not because I'm the best, because it has to get done, and not looking at whatever the issue is in the scene beyond that. We're at A, we got to get to B. I know the way, and then people can just go. They can latch onto that, they can follow on with it, and they're not, a big spectacle isn't being made out of it, especially by the person who is going from A to B. You don't fixate on the tough stuff, aspects of the character. The reader gets it. It's a trope. You don't really have to dwell on it too much. Just that's going back all the way to the show don't tell thing. It's in their actions, and it's in how people perceive them and what they do around them, how they behave. And that's a really good way to show that. Do we have anything else to say about this for the time being?
No, I feel like we've cooked it pretty thoroughly for the moment.
She's a
is there anything you wanted to add one last time, Eric?
No, we got into a good discussion there. I like that. Yeah, no, I got nothing extra.
All right.
Then I'd like to take the moment to just remind everybody that we've got the incredible contest going on. And again, just make your submissions. Sean and I are reading them in real time. I know like some people want to kind of hold off until we get a little bit deeper into it. Don't do that. Let us get our eyes on it sooner. Let us, try to find a place for you sooner. Otherwise, you might get kind of lost in the wave of entries coming in.
Yeah.
And just another quick highlight: 2 rounds of edits doesn't necessarily need to be professional. Just you edit it yourself twice, or you had some friends and family do it. That's really the bottom line.
Yeah, just send it in. That don't cost you nothing.
It's free.
Let us take a look at it. And outside of that, I'm just gonna jump in with Semper Scribble and subscribe. Eric, you told us right before we started recording that you just got your book put out. You want to show everybody and talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, it's called The Darkest Age. It's a small role-playing game. It's a Mork Borg hack. So if you played Mork Borg or any of the variants, you know the rules already. It's a medieval zombie apocalypse. The quickest way to describe it would be, in the original version, it would be Game of Thrones and Walking Dead just kind of taped together and mashed into a ball.
Well, there you go. It sounds like there's probably 1 or 2 tough characters with 2 Fs.
We hope, but it's a very dangerous setting, very dangerous situation.
Okay. Well, Ryan, you know more about that kind of stuff than I do.
I do. How do we end these again?
Trilaterally.
Oh.